Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brand John never wants to follow. Get ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
It is the BJ Show. I am Brad. He is John. John Combest, C-O-M-B-E-S-T. I spell his name because you need to be able to type that in your computer, put it in your keyboard, on your smartphone, on your screen, your iPad, your whatever you have as a smart device, and get to his site, johncombest.com. Every single day, he wakes up early, puts together an extensive list of all the important stuff you should know that's going on in the state of Missouri. And what we do is we bring this guy in the morning. And what's your name again, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And he counts down the top three. And we start with John telling us about...
In third place...
Uniquely today, Brad, we're going to start at number 3 with a story that's not on johncombest.com.
Really?
I don't link to school board elections. You know, there's too many of them throughout the state. I would be doing my readers a disservice if I just linked to a bunch of school board results from around Missouri. So instead, I'll just read you the headline from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch today. Reporter Monica Obradovic. The headline, conservative candidates lose key school board races in St. Charles County. That would be the Francis Howell School District and the Wentzville School District. Now, Brad, thanks to your work that you did 2 weekends ago, we have a booming signal these days all throughout St. Charles County and surrounding areas. So there's probably folks who are listening to us right now live who haven't heard your theories on school board elections, particularly in Francis Howell. So hopefully, Brad, we could get to that in a moment. But I'll just read through what happened here. So in elections in Wentzville, let's start with Francis Howell, actually, because those were a little bit more high profile. Sarah Okel and Amy Greider defeated Republican-backed incumbent Randy Cook and Cook's running mate, Ashley Stern. The quote from Miss Okel, one of the progressive or moderate candidates, I guess you might call her, is, "We have a chance now to make normal happen." And then over in Wentzville, incumbent Julie Scott and newcomer Jeremy Way, so you would either consider them the progressive or the moderate candidates, they defeated Danielle Looney and Christina McCormick. So we've seen some quotes here, Brad, and Monica Obradovic goes through this piece here. We hear some quotes that might sound familiar to long-term listeners of our show. The quote is, "People are ready to get back to focusing on our kids and the real issues that affect them, to feel a sense of community again. And people are tired of the, quote, political back and forth, unquote, in the Francis Howell School District." Now, Brad, you noted, before we went on the air, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but you were listening to another radio show in the St. Louis area that's already talking about these elections. Do you want to touch on maybe a little bit of that? And then also, I think it's important because you have a well-formed theory about what is happening year to year to year in these elections.
John, first off, read me the winners in Wentzville again.
Read you the winners in Francis Howell?
Yeah, no, in Wentzville. In Wentzville. Oh, read me who the winners...
In Wentzville, they are Danielle Looney, L-O-N-N-E-Y, and Christina McCormick. It's spelled uniquely, M-A-C-O-R-M-I-C.
I thought you said Jeremy Way.
No, hold on one second. Did I read that wrong, Brad? I'm sorry. Jeremy Way and Julie Scott won. I was reading top to bottom in the Post-Dispatch. My apologies for that, Brad. Jeremy Way and Julie Scott.
John, I'm not going to take this chance to beat my chest and jump up and down.
But who bought radio ads, Brad?
Jeremy Way. Jeremy Way was on Westplex 107. He was on for 2 weeks. He bought a package. Jeremy Way is an administrator in the Wright City School District. I went out to his office, recorded him. I mean, he went on here. I will give you how easy it was for Jeremy Way to win.
Tell us how quickly someone can record an ad with you, Brad.
Okay. Jeremy, one day my phone goes off, and I've got money in my account. Somebody has bought advertising on Westplex 107.1. .com, the website. And I think to myself, wow, who is this? And the name comes up, Jeremy Way. I thought to myself, who is Jeremy Way? So there's an email on the receipt that was paid for. I emailed this person. I said, "Hi, thanks for buying advertising. What do you want to promote?" And he says, "I am running for the Wentzville School Board, and I bought 2 weeks of advertising because," this is interesting, he said, "I had several people that listened to your station who said it would be an ideal station for me to reach the Wentzville listeners." And I said, "Okay, great." So I said to him, would you like to record your own commercial, or do you want me to record it? He says, "I would like to do it in my own voice." I set an appointment with him. I drove out the right city, got out my little car, walked in his office, put the microphone down in front of him, recorded him. It took no more than 10 minutes. I walk out the door, come back to the studio, edit up the tape, send it to him, edit up the audio, send it back to him. He approved. I put it on the air, and he WON. Now, I will ask you this, John. The people who lost in Francis Howell, Sturm and Cook, right?
Correct, yeah.
They did not buy advertising in Westplex 1071. So what?
And the correlation equals causation there, right?
Exactly, John. There's no.
Okay.
There's no.
That is a masterful radio salesman spin on reality, Brad. Congratulations.
There's no doubt in my mind that's exactly the reason things happen.
I think they needed more yard signs, frankly.
Well, see, don't get me going on that, John. You know how I get.
Brad, do you have, as we're going through the top 3 here, what are your thoughts, if we can get back to the original topic, what are your thoughts on how Francis Howell seems to go from progressive to conservative and then progressive in school board elections?
Let's be honest, John. It's the NEA. The NEA's machine. They get all the teachers to go out and vote. And once again, Sturm and Cook can put up their beautiful websites and have their. Matter of fact, it's funny. I passed their billboard yesterday on 94, going southbound on 94, right as it turns into 364 there in St. Charles. And they can stick up their $3,000 a month billboard, and they can put their yard signs, which are $20 a piece, and the 4x8s and stuff like that, and spend all this money. And yet, the problem is you can't beat the machine. And let's be honest, John, the NEA is a machine. They
are a machine for sure.
They have their mailing list. They mail all the teachers, and they say you have. And, keep in mind, this is the thing that a lot of people may not realize. Just because you teach in a school district doesn't necessarily mean you live in that school district. There are a lot of teachers that teach in other school districts who live in St. Charles County. I know of several teachers that teach in Kirkwood, Parkway, Rockwood, but they live in St. Charles County. So they get the NEA, email, "Hey, don't forget to vote for our slate of candidates in St. Charles County on April 8th. And they go like robots, "I will vote for the NEA slate." And they vote for those people, and they get in. That's all it is to it. And the problem is, once again, what is it, Nick? Is it my buddy Ricky Schroeder that wants to move the April election into the August or the general, the November? Is that what?
Yes, Silver Spoons, Ricky Schroeder, aka Senator Nick Schroer.
Right. And I think he's right. Because of the fact that, and you were talking about me listening to Mark Cox this morning. Apparently in that article, it mentions him by name. Is that true? Did you read the entire article? Does it say?
Yeah, I think it mentions, and let me look here. It certainly mentions Ted House. So Ted House is a former state representative from that area, from St. Charles County, who created this PAC. I don't see any reference to Mark Cox in this story. That doesn't mean that I haven't seen it. I mean, Monica Obradovic points out that these candidates are supported by Republicans. And her quote is, "All 10 of the candidates supported by St. Charles County Families for Public Schools, a political action committee formed by former Dem State Rep Ted House, and 2 former Francis Howell superintendents succeeded." I don't see a reference in here, certainly to Mark Cox or to any other, Francis Howell Families, which is the group that is a conservative group.
He was talking with great glee. Well, not necessarily great glee. I think sort of he was a little bit upset about the fact he made it sound like they mentioned him by name. That the Post-Dispatch.
Well, and it wasn't in the Post-Dispatch. It could have been another outlet. And Brad, what I was driving at earlier, and I'll summarize your earlier statements, are that you've made statements, certainly last April after we covered the last school board elections, that voters are tired of what you would describe as political nonsense in schools. So a progressive group gets in, and you use the pendulum analogy over the last year, which is the pendulum swings too far to the right, and then people get annoyed with that. So then they vote with progressives, and the progressives go a little too far to the left, and then people try to overcorrect.
Right. It's the same reason why the House, on the federal level, the House is going to go Democratic in 2026, and the Senate might even go Democratic in 2026 because people are going like, okay, we voted for Trump because he was going to do this and this and this. He said he was going to make eggs cheaper, and what's he do? He makes things expensive because he puts tariffs on it.
Yeah, and let's go back 150, maybe 200 years. And the idea of every year, the president's first term in the midterms, the president gets killed.
Right.
So
right,
it's
right.
not just a knee-jerk overreaction.
Well, going back to the Mark Cox thing, I believe he specifically talked about the Post. It made it sound like they mentioned him personally in the Post that, hey, these, I'm paraphrasing what he was saying that,
Yeah, now, Brad, with all due respect, I got to poke you a little bit. The last time you quoted Mark Cox on the radio, you said that Mark Cox was mad that the Post-Dispatch quoted our show, and you said that he was insulting us. So I think maybe if we care, we'll go back and we'll listen to what Mark Cox actually said.
He was mad about the fact that they mentioned it was another show.
He said, but he wasn't mad at us. You said that he was insulting me and you, and he obviously didn't. I'm just poking you a little bit.
In an indirect way, he was insulting me and you because he said it was another show. And the crazy thing is we got the quote because, remember, we got the quote where Bill Eigel, I said, Bill, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm coming home. Remember that? I'm coming home.
Yeah.
I'm coming home.
I mean, he was quoting whatever that 90s group that you can hear on Westplex 107.1. And Brad, this has been a great lesson that causation is the exact same thing as correlation. If you buy ads with Brad Hildebrand for 2 weeks for a holler for $1 or whatever the rate is, you too can win your school board election.
John, my whole thing is I try to, I'm a small guy.
And we got 6 minutes for the next two stories.
I'm a small guy, and I try to promote small people, and I don't mean that in the respect that I would diminish them.
You mean like the midgets in Illinois whose name just got banned?
No, I'm not talking about midgets.
Can we go on to the next two, Brad? We can start. How about we start B Block by you talking about the St. Louis Business Expo, your love for the little guy, and radio ads while we finish up the next two stories in B Block. In A Block.
And a station that I tried to buy, which has been technically bought by somebody else, and they're going to do a talk format.
And you should pay your debts before you buy another station. Can we go into story number 2?
Do you really want me to do number 2? Yes. What if I threw you a curve and said,
the number one?
We can go straight to number 1, Brad. We can go out of order.
No, we're going to go number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Boy, that took a while. So the number 2 story today is from Kelsey Landis of the Post-Dispatch and also from Jacob Kern of the St. Louis Business Journal. State officials investigating use of public money on St. Louis County Prop B campaign. Now, for folks that don't live in St. Louis County or who haven't followed this, Proposition B was essentially an anti-Sam Page proposition that would put checks on the county executive's power. Advocates of it said that it would make St. Louis County government more like a lot of municipalities with the right of the council to hire and fire certain officials. I should say fire certain officials. So Sam Page used taxpayer money, and I'll say this as neutrally as possible here, I think, to present the negative side of Proposition B to voters. And his official office called it Proposition Bad. And Sam Page used taxpayer money to distribute tens of thousands of mailers to voters. And let's put a pin in that, Brad, because it's not clear how the Page administration decided which people would actually get these flyers. I got one. I'm a frequent voter. You choose to not vote. You may or may not have gotten one. Anyway, so Tom Sullivan, who I think would be considered by most folks a either constant critic or a gadfly, whatever you want to call him, of local governments, filed a complaint, and Missouri Secretary of State Denny Hoskins' office is, quote, obligated to investigate complaints, said spokesperson Rachel Dunn. Big shout out to Rachel Dunn. She's fantastic. So Denny Hoskins' office is going to take a closer look because he is the chief elections official in Missouri. He's going to take a look at, was taxpayer money that was used to campaign, pretty clearly campaign against Prop B, was it fair in the realm of educating voters? Because, county government, local governments can use taxpayer money to, quote, educate voters. And was the bias so great in these mailers that they were really campaign mailers? So Denny's office is going to look into it.
I read something, I think it was in the Post-Dispatch or somewhere, that Proposition B thing, the judge said it was okay to have it on the ballot Unless I'm paraphrasing here because you're going to get me in trouble unless it passed, then he was going to take another look at it. I mean, it's like, okay, let's think about that for a minute. So in other words, what you're saying is it's okay that it loses, but if it wins, I'm going to take a look at that.
And this was a lose-lose for Sam Page because I think probably the best case for Sam Page was that Prop B actually passed. And then I think that would take some of the fire out of the people that said, I can't believe he used our money to campaign against it. So if it had passed, you would extinguish a little bit of that fire. But I think it's a lose-lose situation. He spent a ton of money, both campaign money and taxpayer money, to beat it. And now he's going to have this investigation, whether or not it comes to anything. I think real quickly, Brad, what's unique is that this will be if Denny Hoskins finds anything, then according to the Post-Dispatch story, he will refer it to the St. Louis County Prosecutor's Office. So will the new woman, who's the St. Louis County Prosecutor, it's hard to say exactly how loyal she would be to the Sam Page machine. It doesn't appear as though she's marching in lockstep with them. So that's curious. But there was one other local election that we should probably talk about, Brad.
Well, John, just let me make one little comment here. For those of you who live in St. Louis County, the St. Louis City disease is moving west, south, and north. And if you know what's good for you, sell your house. If you live in Chesterfield and Wildwood, do like Mark Cox and abandon St. Louis County because he knows that it's going to hell in a handbasket. Move into St. Charles County. Move to the Westplex where it's wonderful and you don't have creepy people like Sam Page. Okay, number one.
The number one.
Headline from Post-Dispatch, Austin Hughley. Cara Spencer wins landslide in St. Louis mayor's race, beats Tishaura Jones by 28 points. Brad, this went exactly as you expected, right?
I told you it was going to happen, that Cara was going to win.
You sure did. Brad, you're 0-2 lately. You said Kamala was going to win, and you said that Tishaura was going to win.
I'm not very good at that, so I'm
not.
Hey,
but you know what? You called Donald Trump many, many years ago. So it was a landslide victory. I thought it was going to be much narrower on texting with some friends yesterday. I thought it would be 12 points. I didn't have any idea, by the way, so I was also way wrong on this, Brad. So Cara Spencer is the new mayor of St. Louis. I saw parts of Tishaura Jones' concession speech, if you would call it that, where she talked about how there's going to be a lot of great stuff that happens now. And, Tishaura is to credit for that. So a unique view. And I would also plug for folks who want an alternate Republican view of this. David Barklage, GOP consultant extraordinaire, was on Scott Fawn's This Week in Missouri Politics Daily, TWMP Daily, and he was talking about what he would do if he was advising Cara Spencer and the most important things for Cara to focus on. So big, huge landslide win for Cara Spencer last night.
Well, probably one of the biggest stories out of the city was Donna Baringer beat Darlene Green.
Green had been there, they said, I saw 30 years. So I guess that would be, I don't know if that's exact, but
yes.
Yeah, Darlene Green's been there forever.
And Donna Baringer is a regular guest on as you probably know, on the roundtable on Mark Reardon's show on Friday afternoons.
I happen to link to it every Friday. Yeah.
Yes. And to me, when you listen to her, she sounds like a reasonable person. Maybe there's hope for the city, right? Maybe there's hope.
Yeah, there's not at all. And people like Donna are dying off every year. Donna is in her 60s if she's not 70, and she's a wonderful old school South City Democrat, pretty conservative, wants to crack down on criminals, can be progressive in other ways. The Donna Baringers, unfortunately, of the world are dying off, and they're not being replaced by good young moderates. But you know what, Brad? For people that want to have something to believe in, I think we would all agree that it's great that Donna Baringer won.
John, I've gotten a couple texts here this morning. They wanted to know, they didn't catch the beginning of the show. They wanted to know who won in the Wentzville School District. Who won those board seats in the Wentzville School District?
The person, 100% of people who, 100% of people who advertise on Westplex 107.1, a gentleman named Jeremy Way. Jeremy won by over 1,000 votes. And I think we can solely attribute that because correlation equals causation. We could attribute that to advertising on Westplex 107.1.
And the people in Francis Howell, who were they again that lost?
The folks that lost were your friends Ashley Sturm and Randy Cook.
Ashley Sturm and Randy Cook, right? Is that
That's their name.
That no.
I feel like you're recording this to do your own radio ad
Oh,
of election results and winners and losers.
I can't find it. I can't. Hold on.
Are you looking for yard signs suck?
No,
Then, as
No,
of
that
this moment, double secret probation.
that's not it. Hold on, man.
Who dumped a whole truckload of fizzies into the swim meet?
That's not it.
Who delivered the
I
medical
can't
school
find
cadavers to the
0.0. John, we'll start off B block by talking about this because I think that sometimes you think I'm a wacko, but I think I'm more to the finger on the pulse guy than you and your cohorts.
I know, Brad, you have so much more experience in political campaigns than I do.
John,
And you know what? A 2-week radio campaign on. I'm not going to denigrate the stations. Go ahead, Brad. Let's go into break.